predator, fraud, and cheat known for inciting violent mobs, she's lived the American dream while he's been America's nightmare. So let me tell you something, Mr. Trump, you're going to learn a few lessons from us, and I'm going to be the first one, yes, you and your little friend off of Twitter, y'all about to find out. Hold on to your seats, folks, because Jasmine Crockett just took down Donald and Melania Trump live on TV, and it's nothing short of a masterclass in savage clapbacks. In a moment of pure unfiltered gold, Jasmine exposed the Trumps like never before, leaving them red-faced and speechless. You won't believe what she said. Get ready for a roast of epic proportions because Jasmine's coming for them, and this is the ultimate exposé you don't want to miss. I want you to know that the crisis is here, that's right. I want you to know that the power belongs to the people, though y'all do not feel powerless in this moment. As the vice president said, as she conceded the election, she said dark times may be ahead of us, but she said it's only in the darkness that we can see the stars. I am telling you right now that the stars are right here. It's time for us to shine, it's time for us to be heard, it's time for us to make sure that they know we will not. Jasmine Crockett wasn't holding back, and let's be honest, when does she ever? But this time she took things to a whole new level, dragging Donald Trump so hard even his hairpiece probably tried to make a run for it. It's very simple. We right now have a white supremacist sitting in the White House, backed up by other white supremacists, and if you really want to know who the criminals are in this country, you can Google it. You don't have to trust me, but the people that commit 80% of the most violent crimes in this country are white supremacists, yet for whatever reason, they sit and serve at the pleasure of the president. They are the ones who were there on January 6th, tearing our democracy down physically, and now we have them tearing us down. It all started when the former president, aka America's most exhausting grandpa, tried to play the victim card again. Trump, as usual, was on TV crying about how unfair the world is, how he's the real victim, and how everyone's out to get him. You know, the same sob story he's been telling since he lost the election. At this point, he's like a broken record at a conspiracy theorist's yard sale, scratched up, out of tune, and only good for background noise. This is not what we should be doing. I don't even know why we're fighting with Greenland, why we're fighting with Canada, why we're fighting with Mexico. Yeah, we're in love with Putin. What is happening? Like, this is not America, this is a terrible nightmare. Somebody slap me and wake me up, 'cause I'm ready to get on with it. But Jasmine, oh, she was not having it. The congresswoman from Texas, who, let's be real, has mastered the art of clapbacks like a seasoned roast master, stepped up and delivered a verbal smackdown so devastating, even Trump's lawyers probably needed a moment to recover. She didn't just read him, she gave him the unabridged audiobook, the documentary, and a live-action adaptation all in one. And just imagine, we've got to go through this for a total of 4 years. I think that today will probably mean more to my district than my last swearing-in, because we are definitely living in scarier times. So I am so elated and grateful, number one, to have another opportunity to serve, but more importantly, to be able to share in my swearing-in for a second term with the people that sent me to D.C. And again, the only people that can fire me, regardless of how many other people around the country want me to be fired. I want my district to always know that they will always be my priority, and they are always my focus first. She pointed out the obvious. Donald Trump has been crying about being a victim for longer than most reality TV shows last. He's always whining, she said, rolling her eyes so hard they almost went into another dimension, always complaining about how unfair the system is. Sir, you are the system. And let's talk about the expression on her face. You know that look your auntie gives you when you say something so dumb she has to pause and reevaluate your entire existence? Yeah, that's the energy she brought to this roast session. Then Jasmine hit him with the hard truth. Donald Trump has had more witch hunts than an actual witch. He's out here acting like he's being persecuted when in reality he's just facing consequences, something clearly not familiar with. Okay, let's just tell the truth instead. We're pushing conspiracy theories, and some of them are killing people. It's the same thing coming out of Doge. It's the reason people are dying and farmers are losing their farms because we keep pushing conspiracy theories. It's time for us to say, Mr. President, guess what? Russia invaded Ukraine. Can we at least agree on that one? Facts matter. This is potentially putting us into an international crisis. We might be heading toward the next world war because we have a president who wants to pal around with Putin and do everything to make him feel good, including lying about who invaded who. But she wasn't done. She brought up Trump's legal troubles, calling him the only man who treats indictments like Pokemon cards, gotta catch them all. When someone in the audience chuckled, she doubled down, saying, at this point, he's going to need a punch card. Buy 9 felonies, get the 10th one free. Twitter, or X, if you let Elon ruin your vocabulary, exploded immediately with memes, showing Trump's classic pout photoshopped onto baby bottles and pacifiers. One user wrote, Jasmine Crockett just sent Trump to the shadow realm, while another posted a gif of Judge Judy rolling her eyes with the caption Cry More. Meanwhile, Trump, in his usual fashion, took to his social media platform to post one of his signature all-caps rants. At the end of the day, Jasmine Crockett did what needed to be done. She gathered Trump up like leftovers, served him cold, and honestly, we love to see it. Unfortunately, all of MAGA are beholden to their little leader and will do anything to get his stamp of approval on national television. Jasmine Crockett took a flamethrower to every lie, every excuse, and every ridiculous claim Trump has ever made. She didn't just expose him, she put him on a metaphorical rotisserie, slow-cooked him, and served him up with a side of reality, garnished with a sprinkle of boy, sit down. Because let's be real, if this is a witch hunt, Trump's been caught flying around on his broomstick, cackling, and tossing subpoenas over his shoulder like magic spells gone wrong. The man has more indictments than he has decent lawyers. Actually, scratch that, he has more indictments than competent legal strategies, and yet, he still waddles onto every stage like a cartoon villain, claiming he's the real victim. Jasmine basically laughed in his face, metaphorically of course, before dropping the cold hard truth. If Trump didn't want to be on trial all the time, maybe, just maybe, he could try not committing crimes, a revolutionary concept, we know. We've got to do better at education. People don't understand, but you will understand when those hospitals in rural America start closing down even more. You will understand when you don't have your Social Security. You will understand when your Medicaid and Medicare go away. You will understand as planes continue to fall out of the sky. Soon you will understand why it's important to maybe have someone who isn't loud and ridiculous. Maybe Sleepy Joe is what we want, because at least then. She then moved on to the perfect phone calls. Oh yes, those phone calls, so flawless they should be framed in the Smithsonian right next to a napkin with Nixon's signature. Jasmine pointed out how Trump describes every shady, potentially illegal conversation he's ever had as perfect. At this point, we're starting to wonder if his definition of perfect is just a felony that got recorded. She practically rolled her eyes so hard they almost reached Mar-a-Lago, pointing out that normal people don't have to constantly explain why their phone calls aren't crimes. Imagine calling your grandma and then holding a press conference to say, "That was a perfect call. The best call. No collusion. No quid pro quo." It's absurd. And let's talk about the classified documents. Oh boy, Jasmine dragged Trump so hard on this that Mar-a-Lago's walls probably shook. She compared him to a toddler caught red-handed with a crayon mural on the living room wall, standing there saying, "What crayon? I don't even know what crayons are." Trump was out here stuffing top-secret documents into his golf bags like they were extra ketchup packets from McDonald's. Meanwhile, he's trying to act confused about why the feds keep knocking on his door like a persistent Jehovah's Witness. Jasmine made it clear, if you don't want the FBI showing up, maybe don't turn your resort into the National Archives. Just a thought. The question before us is, will a vindictive, vile villain violate voters' vision? For a better America or not, I hear alliterations are back in style. We deserve better. We deserve a president who can be a bright light in a sea of darkness, one who will pull us forward because we won't go back. Of course, she hit on his delusional claims about winning the 2020 election. Jasmine didn't just debunk it, she demolished it, ran it over with a truck, and set the remains on fire for good measure. She compared Trump to that one guy who loses a game of Uno, flips the table, and then insists he actually won because he had a gut feeling. The reality check was swift and brutal. He lost, and he lost harder than a toddler playing chess against Magnus Carlsen, harder than a first-time gym bro trying to bench press 300 pounds, harder than a middle schooler who just got friend-zoned in front of the whole cafeteria. It wasn't even close. The scoreboard wasn't just lopsided, it was straight-up disrespectful. But, of course, in true Trump fashion, he doubled down, claimed the refs were blind, the system was rigged, and that if you just counted the right votes, just the ones for him, he actually won in a landslide. Jasmine didn't let that slide. She rolled the receipts, played the tape, and shut it down faster than a bootleg streaming site in a major lawsuit. Even his most die-hard supporters had to squint and pretend they saw something that wasn't there, like a mirage in the desert season instead of cuffing season. I think Donald absolutely wants to cut the strings, but he really doesn't know how. This is a guy who has always decided to surround himself with people who have money and/or power, and right now all he cares about is money. For those who felt like he was going to be their savior and look out for the middle class, he has never been middle class, so he's not looking out for them. We know he is filling his cabinet, or at least attempting to, with other very wealthy people. He's looking out for his future and what that will look like, and that's why it's difficult for him to cut the strings because he needs Elon. Then came the financial fraud situation. Oh boy, Trump swears up and down that he's a billionaire, yet somehow his bank account looks shakier than his grip on reality. Jasmine shredded him over his fake wealth, pointing out that every time a judge asks him to pay up, he suddenly can't find the money. One minute, he's rich enough to buy the moon, and the next, he's acting like a broke college student avoiding a landlord, saying, "I'll get you next week, bro, I swear, just waiting for my inheritance check from my Nigerian prince cousin." She highlighted how his financial situation is like one of those Instagram influencers flexing on a private jet until you realize it's just a rental, and they're only sitting there for the photo shoot. The man's empire is built on monopoly money, and every time someone asks for an actual dollar, he suddenly goes radio silent. Billionaire, where? At this point, even Mr. Krabs has more liquid assets than him. This so-called mandate that MAGA thinks exists isn't going anywhere because they literally can't do the basics. We've passed the least amount of bills in this Congress because of the Republicans, and let me remind you why the last speaker got kicked out. It was because he raised the debt ceiling, and Trump was the one calling for his head. Now he's like, raise the debt ceiling, because of his Trump tax cuts, this old con he has that helps out all the billionaires he's putting into his administration, or at least is hoping to. Those Trump tax cuts expire in 2025. He is the only president we've ever had who, in one term, ran our debt up to $8 trillion. So he already knows he's about to run our debt up again, so he doesn't want to have to deal with the debt ceiling. Instead, he wants us to do it. Listen, I ain't got no favors for you, Trump, when you get here. And let's talk about his legal troubles. This man has more court dates than a Law and Order marathon. Jasmine listed them off like she was reading the lineup for Coachella: fraud cases, election interference, hush money payments. It's a festival of felonies. If crime were a sport, Trump would be Michael Jordan. If lying was an Olympic event, he'd take home the gold every 4 years. By the time Jasmine was done, the audience didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or send the man a GoFundMe link. His entire situation is like watching a reality TV show, except instead of a cash prize at the end, there's a prison sentence waiting. And of course, she went in on his legal drama. Trump has spent more time in